everybody. Hey, Darwin.
Hello.
Hey, Barb. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing, Dove? Hey, Jerry. Hey, just a side note, when you shared that last week, James, about when we can unmute ourselves using the space bar, I never knew that. I've been doing Zoom for like a year with my kids. Had no idea you could do that. So thanks for that technology tidbit.
Yeah, keyboard shortcuts are super important with Zoom meetings.
Yes, that was beautiful. Thanks.
Can everyone hear me tonight okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
I also put my speakers on. Somebody told me, gave me that suggestion because I couldn't hear last week some things, and somebody said, pop in your speakers, it'll be a little easier. So yes, I thought I'd take that suggestion too.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the So everyone saw Darwin's outline. That's where we're going to head in the discussion. Do you want to go over it a little bit, Darwin, the beginning of it? So then.
Sure, I can.
Or you can facilitate if you would like.
I would be happy to. So council, and I don't know if all of you have had an opportunity to look at my memo because it was sent this evening. But you can definitely look it over when you have an opportunity. And from what I understand, tonight's meeting is just a first discussion on the village administrator recruitment and selection process and how some of the things that you may need to be thinking about as you move forward with that process. And it is a pretty involved process. I'm not all that familiar with the process that you followed a year ago when you went through the selection process that time. But what I tried to do in my memorandum was just give you an outline of some of the major things that you need to be thinking about, the major steps, and some of the considerations that you need to keep in mind as you move through this process. So with that, Your Honor, if it's okay, I'll just kind of go down my list, and if there are any questions, please feel free to stop me and let me know.
Hey, Darwin. Would you mind, I think it might be helpful, I know it would be for me, could you share your screen with us so that we could see that list as you go through it?
I can definitely, actually it's saved on my desktop computer.
Oh, is it?
Not
okay.
On my personal, I'm on my personal laptop and it's saved on the village's computer.
Would you
so
like one of us
apologize.
to share our screen and you can discuss it, or would you prefer not to?
No, that would be great if one of you want to share your screen.
I can share my screen if that's okay. Is council okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Let me share my screen here. Hang on. Okay. You have to allow me to share though.
And I think
you got it. Okay.
You got it.
Host disabled participant screen share. It still says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay. if Lisa can hear us, there she is.
Oh, there we go. Oh, if Lisa can share it then perhaps.
Yeah, Lisa's the
There.
host of tonight's
Oh,
meeting.
then maybe she can share it then, sure.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Share. And Darwin. Okay, how's that?
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
So-
Thank you.
So some of your considerations as you move forward, and I tried to outline these in order of the steps that you should be thinking about taking. So first, some of the first steps you're going to want to take is to review section 65.8 of Act 3 of 1895. There's a section in the General Law Village Act that deals specifically with the village manager and the council's ability to create the village manager position. And it outlines how you go about doing that and how you transfer that authority. So you'll want to review that just to refresh your memory and to educate yourself on what the council's legal authority is as it regards the village manager or village administrator position. Second, you'll want to review the village code of ordinances, the ordinance that creates the village administrator position. And you should determine whether or not at this time you want to make any changes to that ordinance. Because that really is the local authority in terms of creating the position and providing the duties and authority of the position. You'll want to review the village administrator job description. The one that I have seen was adopted way back in 2009. So I am sure that it probably needs to be updated. So that should be part of your process. The council should decide whether or not you want to hire an executive search firm to step you through the recruitment and selection process. And of course, there is a cost attached to that. So you'll need to consider that as well. You'll want to determine what role, if any, you want me to have in this process. I do ask that the council support my position that I should not have any involvement in making any type of selection on the candidates that you choose to interview or your final selection for the position. As I've talked to a couple council members, a lot of the applicants that you will see are colleagues of mine. Some of them are friends of mine. Some of them I don't know all that well. But we need to make sure that the process is fair to everyone who applies for the position, and that there is not even the appearance that I or anyone else has given any undue influence in making that selection. You make that selection, you can have the influence. I should not be influencing those decisions in any way. But I am more than happy to work behind the scenes in terms of helping to step you through each section of this process as you move along. And I'm happy to work with a search firm consultant if you decide to hire one. And I can do a lot of the legwork to help you and help the consultant. You will want to prepare a position profile. And in that I noted that you'll need to determine what type of staff and community engagement you want in preparing that profile. I would strongly recommend that you engage both in preparing that profile, because the profile really gives an overview of what you are looking for as far as your next village administrator. And I'm sure that each and every one of you have your own ideas as to what you feel are important attributes, qualities, qualifications. But if you really want a decision and a selection that is going to also have the support of our citizens and our staff, it's important that you engage them in both the preparation of the position profile, which is your guiding document as you move along and making a selection. And also, I noted later on, also possibly in the interview process itself. So the position profile, you should be working on a community profile, which gives a background on the community, a description of the community, an organization profile to give the candidates some background information on how the Village of Blissfield organization is set up. The community and position opportunities, community and position challenges, council expectations for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, and a year. Goals and objectives, so that it gives the candidates a good idea of what you're looking for, what types of knowledge and skill capacity you're looking for in the candidates. And then your ideal candidate profile, the required knowledge and experience, preferred knowledge and experience, ideal traits and attributes. Also, you should include in the profile the salary range, and at the same time, the council should be having some discussion on consideration for the fringe benefits that you feel you are willing to and can financially afford to provide to the position. And also in the profile, you should outline at the end of it what the application process is, the deadline for applying, and whether or not it will be an open deadline or a set deadline, and whatever other information you want to put in there about the process itself. Next, you would be looking at advertising the position, and that would involve preparation of the advertisement. And this is where I or the consultant can be helpful to the council in terms of doing that legwork, preparing the advertisement, the publication of the advertisement. You're definitely going to want to publish the advertisement in your local newspaper so that you open up the opportunity to your local citizens in case you do have anyone who may be qualified locally. Also, some other considerations, perhaps advertising in the ICMA newsletter, the MML website, and other state municipal leagues, because every state has its own state league, like the Michigan Municipal League, and they also publish on their websites job openings. So that may be another consideration. There may be some costs involved there, so you've got to take that into consideration as well. But also begin thinking about the diversity outreach and how you may want to go about that and to what extent. The next step would be the preparation of the interview format, questions, and process. You will definitely want to consult with the village attorney or labor attorney on permissible versus impermissible interview questions. You want to be very careful to prepare questions and in such a way that that you're not violating any type of labor laws. You will want to consider the development of the rating criteria and method on how you will rate the candidates, both in terms of reviewing of resumes and also when you're interviewing finalists and trying to make a selection. And you will want to have some discussion with each other on an agreement on how you will make the final selection, so that even before you interview candidates, all of the council members are on the same page and have already agreed to how you're going to make that final selection. So I think that's very important, so that you don't run into any conflict after you've interviewed people and then you're trying to figure out how you want to make that decision. It's better to discuss that up front, come to a consensus on how you want to handle that. Then you'll receive resumes. You will have a deadline, or you will say in the advertisement that that the position is open until filled, but you'll do a first round of resume review on such and such date, however the council wants to handle that. Under state law, you can allow candidates to submit their resumes confidentially. And so the applicants would remain confidential until you make a selection on the candidates that you're going to interview. The candidates that you would interview would, then those names would become public once you schedule those interviews. You'll want to consider the resume review process. What is the time frame for reviewing the resumes? Who will do the initial review of the resumes? Will council do that as a body? Will you appoint a committee who will do the initial review of resumes and weed out resumes and then recommend a certain number of top candidates to the council for further consideration? You'll want to make some decision in that regard. And then the selection of the finalists for interviews. What is the method and selected by whom? I would assume that the selection of the finalists for interviews would be done by the entire council. But that will be something you will need to consider and decide on. The next step is the conduct of the interviews. Making sure that the interviews are conducted in a way that is fair, uniform, and consistent. It's very important that you conduct all of the interviews in exactly the same way. Paying attention to your own body language, and I'm just giving some examples. This isn't a list of things, but body language is important when you're asking questions of candidates. Inconsistent questioning, where you ask some candidates questions that you're not asking other candidates, and that may influence your own perceptions as to who's the most qualified. So being fair, uniform, and consistent in the interview process. It's important that all council members attend all interviews. It's not fair to the candidates if one or more council members have to miss. Let's say you're interviewing 5 candidates and one or more council members have to miss 1 or 2 of the interviews. It's important that all of you participate in all of the interviews. And again, staff and community engagement. What do you view as the proper role of staff and the community in the interview process and the selection process. You should be thinking about that and deciding what involvement you want both of those groups to have in that process. And then the selection of the administrator, the method of selection, again, hopefully you will have already decided ahead of time how that selection method will be handled. Will you want to make sure that the council is unanimous in its selection? It always makes manager candidates nervous when they're appointed on a split vote, and it may influence their final decision to accept or not to accept the position. It's more of a psychological thing, I think, but it's very important that, if at all possible, to try to come to a consensus and be unanimous in your selection of your new administrator. And then, of course, negotiation of the employment agreement, deciding who's going to be handling the negotiation, what parameters you will have in the negotiation. What do you feel you can afford? What do you feel is off the table? So all of the details around the contract negotiation itself should be worked out by the council. And that really should be done before you even interview, as part of the earlier process. And then also concurrent with the negotiation of the employment contract, you'll also want to have that final candidate execute a consent form so that you can also begin the background investigation. Contacting the references, doing a criminal history check, doing a credit history check, and I did note in there that that background checks have to be performed in compliance with federal and state laws. There are laws that govern certain aspects of the background check. So I know with the criminal check, the chief can probably advise you a lot more than I can on all of the parameters for that, but you've got to be careful on how you do the criminal check. Credit check, there's federal law that governs how you handle credit checks for potential employees, and make sure that you're complying with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And then I also noted in here, after the selection process, there's some onboarding considerations that you should keep in mind to prepare your new administrator to come on board. Making sure the office is set up and ready for the new administrator when they come in, business cards, having the nameplates already prepared, so that they're ready to, they've got their identification already at the table for your first meeting. A bunch of little things mean a lot to your new administrator when he or she comes on board. Making sure that if the contract calls for you to provide a cell phone, that's all set up on their first day. Email, their computer, their phone system, their voicemail and everything is set up for them. Just a lot of those little things that will really help them hit the ground running on day one when they get here. Also, introductions to staff, to the business community, to nonprofit and civic organizations, your county, state, and federal elected officials. Consider holding an open house and invite the public to Village Hall to meet your new administrator, so that it helps acclimate the administrator to the community, but also makes the community feel comfortable with their administrator. A tour of the community and municipal facilities. And also, one of the very first things council should do is to hold a work session with your new administrator to discuss what your expectations are of the administrator. Start to provide that feedback up front as early after they start as possible, because that input from the council as to what your expectations are will be so important to your administrator, both in the short term and in the longer term, for their professional success here in the village. So those are just a few of my ideas and suggestions. I hope they're helpful, and I'm happy to answer any questions any trustees may have.
I'd just like to say that's a great list, and I think it gives us a great foundation to start from and to work with.
Well, thank you for that. And are there any other questions? Is this a good start for the council? I know we're going to be having many discussions on this, and there's going to be, I'm sure, many meetings as you go through this process. So this wasn't intended for you to have an in-depth discussion tonight. It was, I was just trying to give you an overview of the things that you need to be looking at and start to consider for future discussions.
No,
I do.
I'm sorry, Jerry. I was just going to say thank you very much. It's a great place to start from. It certainly makes us have the opportunity to go into things, for us to get on the ground and running as well. Very clear, very thorough. Did we do all those incoming things for you like we should have?
Well, you were in kind of a time crunch to get this selection process done, and it wasn't nearly as important for me because I'm only here temporarily. I can tell you that that village staff is absolutely awesome. They have spent so much time with me today, getting me acclimated, helping me get my computer set up, and teaching me the phone system and how it works and how to get into voicemail, and giving me a tour of Village Hall to get acclimated with where everything is. I'll tell you, you have a wonderful, wonderful team here. And I have loved talking to everyone that I've talked to today. The police chief, Brandon, Lisa, Holly. I talked a little bit with Heather, and even Jacob, who let me into the building this morning, because when I saw the sign on the front door that said you were closed for Martin Luther King, I'm like, am I here on the wrong day? So Jacob let me into the building, but just great people, and they made me feel so comfortable from the first moment I got here. And that is so important, to have a team like that. I'll tell you, I'm already jealous of who your new administrator is going to be, because they're going to be coming into a great environment.
I did have just one question, and I know Barb and Gwen and Bob and Mike have been around, but generally, just a general cost on the process of hiring a new administrator, especially if we use somebody like MML or one of the others that are out there. I'm just looking for a general number if someone can provide that to me.
My experience has been that you will probably see proposals from consultants that is a set percentage of the salary of the position. And I would venture to guess you're probably looking at 10 to 15% will probably be in the range that they will propose. So if you're looking at somewhere around $70,000 to $75,000 for salary, you're probably looking at right around $7,500 as a fee, and then there will be incidental expenses. Now, don't quote me on that number. I'm just telling you what I have seen. But you can probably expect 10 to 15%.
Okay, thank you.
And one of your recommendations, Darwin, would be to go with a group to do that, with an organization to do that for us. Obviously, we did not the first time around with our candidates, but there can be certainly good and bad. But that, just curious what your thoughts are. I'm going to guess that you maybe have seen success both ways, perhaps not.
I have, although I would recommend that you strongly consider an executive search firm to assist you with this process. I think it will be very helpful to you. I've heard a little bit about the last search process, and I would recommend that the council be much more engaged in this process than perhaps occurred last time. And an executive search firm can help step you through every step of that process and do a lot of the mundane work that needs to be done. It is quite involved. You see this list, and it is a quite involved process. But your consultant will be able to keep you on task, which will probably be the single most important thing that a consultant can do, is to keep the council on schedule and on task with each step of this process. And but they are well worth the money that you would spend for them.
So do we send out quotes for that? The firms that we want?
Yes, I can prepare a request for quotes or request for proposals, so that we can reach out to executive search firms and have them submit proposals to us. One of the things I would recommend too, because there are local search firms and then there are national search firms that handle executive searches all over the 50 states. And I think if you want to get a good cross section of search firms and get the most competitive proposal, you may want to consider looking at national firms as well. It doesn't really cost you anything to do that. One of the things I would recommend is that we join the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network. It's a web-based, really a web-based bidding system, and it's other than a $195 upfront fee to get set up and everything. It's completely free to the village from that point forward. And not only can you use it for this process to reach out nationally, but the village could use that system to do a lot of its competitive bidding, to get good pricing on all of the purchases that we do. And we could invite our local businesses to register on that system so that they can get automatic notifications whenever we're purchasing. It is a great system for both local businesses, but also to reach out to a larger audience. And there is a $195 upfront fee because they'll send out an invitation letter to all of the local businesses to register as a vendor. And that's free of charge to the businesses, but it is a good system and it would help us to reach out. But I do have a list of executive search firms that we could reach out to as well and send personal invitations to.
What was the name of that group again, Darwin?
It's called the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network, MITN, MITN. And they are part of a broader network called BidNet Direct. But MITN was actually set up by several Michigan municipalities, Farmington Hills, and some other municipalities. I think there were 10 original municipalities that actually set up the system for Michigan. And now it has expanded to, there are many, many more municipalities, including a number of villages that are now members of the Mitten bid system. And it's an excellent system because it also, as a member, you can also look up the bid specifications that other communities have put out for similar purchases. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can do a search and pull down their bid documents. You can see what bids came in for each community for different things and what the pricing was, who was awarded the bids. A lot of that information is posted back to the system. It is a wonderful system to have, and I'd say almost free, because that, other than that $195, it never costs you another dime.
Darwin, how much of this consideration process do you think we should have formalized by the council prior to reaching out to either an executive search firm or proceeding on our own if we so choose that direction?
I think, I think this is a good outline, unless you feel that there's something missing from it. So one of your first decisions is going to be whether or not you want to engage an executive search firm. If you do, they're going to delve into a lot more detail, but they're basically going to follow this type of outline. They will just add more detail to it and give you some time schedules on what they think is an adequate schedule and a reasonable schedule to follow in getting through your process. So one of your first decisions should be, do you want to have an executive search firm help you with this process? If so, then we can go ahead and we can prepare a request for proposals and get that out and see what proposals come back and what the pricing is. And then you can make a final decision on whether you want to go ahead and engage the services of one of the firms, or if you want to, reconsider and maybe handle it on your own if you feel that it's too expensive. If you decide that you want to handle the process on your own, then that's when we need to start working out a schedule on, going through all these things in more detail, start discussing them, try to come up with a reasonable schedule to get through all of these items. So it really is going to be driven by your decision as to whether to handle everything in-house or to go outside for assistance.
Who did we use last time around? Does anybody recall?
We didn't use anyone, Jerry. We did not do that.
Yeah, we did it. We did in-house. But Darwin, I'll go ahead, Gwen. No, I was just gonna talk to Darwin for a second. In our conversations previously, I had said that we had some excellent staff, and I'm glad that they didn't let me down. So I'm really happy that they made you feel welcome.
Oh my gosh, they did. They're a great group of people, and boy, do they have a good sense of humor too, and I love it.
So, council, what would be your, as far as going with the firm, or do you want to have some more discussion about it?
If I'm understanding you correctly, Darwin, you are saying that we could go ahead and do the executive search national firms and make that decision, send out then prepare the RFPs, if that's correct, and then we can kind of go from there and see what the cost would be.
Yes. So if you authorize administration to proceed, we would prepare a request for proposals. And if you want to place that on your next council agenda, I can have a draft request for proposals so that it's already prepared for you. You can look that over. You can make your decision as to whether you want to proceed. So that cuts some time off there by already having the RFP ready for you when you want to make that decision. And then all you need to do is authorize me to proceed to start to disseminate that to search firms. I can also give you the list of the firms that I'm aware of so that you have some idea of what companies that RFP would go out to for personal invitation. And I could also have information for you on the Mitten bid system if you want to move along with that as well, so that we can do all of that pretty much concurrently.
So I would suggest that you put that on our council agenda for next council meeting.
Okay. Yes, if that's the consensus of the council, that's what I'll do.
I would concur.
Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, we did make a motion last meeting to go ahead and move forward with the RFQ process, to instruct Darwin to go ahead and move forward with that. And we did approve that as such. So I think he can go ahead and start on that as, you know, as soon as he can.
Okay. So at your next meeting, the only thing I would need from you is the authorization for the Mitten bid system, authorizing the $195 fee and the approval of the membership documents. And so I can place that on your next agenda. In the meantime, I can go ahead and start preparing the RFP, and I can actually, I would like to, so that would come back to council for final approval as well, because I want to make sure that that the RFP meets your approval and your expectations.
Is there anything else?
I agree with that. I think that's the right thing to do. We're going to get, you know, for spending that extra money, again, it's following through in the entire process. It's seeking out the people that we want based on what we're trying to accomplish. You know, it's going to help us in the selection process on the qualifications, who's qualified, who isn't, as well as, like Darwin had alluded to, the consistency in the interview process, making sure that we're asking the same questions, the right questions, that sort of thing. I think it's well worth the money.
Yes, and the executive search firm will facilitate your preparation of the position profile. They will step you through all of that and give you advice and guidance on how to go through all of that. So it is money well spent.
And we'll have the opportunity at the meeting next Monday night to talk about specific firms.
Yes, I will provide you with a list of the firms that I intend to send personal invitations to. Then we will also advertise for the RFP on the Mitten bid system once you've authorized me to do that. Of course, I'm sure there will be other firms that we will end up getting proposals from after we advertise on there as well.
If there aren't any other questions, then I think this meeting went real well. I thank Darwin for your outline, and I'm sure that your expertise will come in handy for us as we move forward.
Thank you, sir. And I'll do everything I can to help you in any way I can as you move through this process.
And if there is anything that the rest of you would like to see on our agenda, you can talk to Darwin, call him personally. He'll set up the next agenda. And I thank all of you for your questions tonight. And I look forward to moving forward with this process and working as a team. I appreciate that very much. So that would be it for this meeting. Thanks a lot, Darwin.
Thank you to everybody. You have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.